sweet harmony of birds leads every step of our journey. The journey that brought us to this magical place full of imagination and wonder. The place with a beauty that calms hearts, turns strangers into families, and turns sadness into joy. We started the journey with problems, disagreements, and debates on where to go and what to do. The pride to always be right, and the ego that makes it difficult to communicate. But this place melted our ego and taught us to turn weakness into power, to complete our mission and to achieve our vision. Living together in the wilderness taught us that one of the biggest power we possess is fellowship. The willingness to look after each other, to embrace and support each other instead of doing everything alone. And nature also taught us to keep calm and achieve the best result. The friendliness and the warmth of the locals brought us together. We went beyond friendship. We are now family. We went through many things in this journey. Obstacles, sadness, and stressful situations. But we also experienced happiness. We created togetherness and we achieved our goal. This experience has strengthened us, shaped us into better people, better than who we were before. One day we will wake up, far from here. We will remember the feeling of peace and love, the feeling that tied us to this place, a magical place, full of imagination and wonder.
I really want to contribute because I started my career as a volunteer 10 years ago, and now I have a quite good career and a lot of experience, a lot of networking in Laos, in ASEAN and other countries in the world.
I volunteer because I have a really big concern toward children education right issues in Indonesia and also in other ASEAN countries.
Volunteering is sharing our time, sharing our energy in order to make the world a better place.
I personally define volunteering as the act of giving to help and giving to benefit others without getting paid or having any expectation of getting something in return.
To me, volunteering is being a part of a cause that serves as a betterment for your community. And nowadays, I think the word community is not only limited to the country that we're living in, but it also extends to the rest of the world as well.
The best part about volunteering is I have the opportunity to see myself and experience how people's lives change, and what matters most is to see people smile.
To be a leader, a stronger, focused and fierce leader is why I want to join this program. To be given the opportunity to widen so many aspects in myself to help this community is something I want to be a part of.
Basically, I volunteer because it is worth my time. And knowing that I am helping someone, when I volunteer, I feel I am connected with people and its community serving towards one goal.
Youth is an essential source of community development because they have skill, potential, and creativity that can contribute to making a big impact to their country as well as to the ASEAN community as a whole.
Bringing together ASEAN as a whole is just a first step in bringing together a global humanitarian movement, and one that is bound to unlock a lot more potential in that.
I see IA as a great opportunity for me to develop myself, not only as an individual, but it also allows me to be a competent change maker in my community.
IA is one of the most prestigious volunteering platforms across Southeast Asia, and I do believe with IA I can maximize the potential or the impact that I could give back to the society.
The sweet harmony of birds leads every step of our journey. The journey that brought us to this magical place full of imagination and wonder. The place with a beauty that calms hearts, turns strangers into families, and turns sadness into joy. We started the journey with problems, disagreements, and debates on where to go and what to do. The pride to always be right, and the ego that makes it difficult to communicate. But this place humbled us, melted our ego, and taught us to turn weakness into power, to complete our mission and to achieve our vision. Living together in the wilderness taught us that one of the biggest power we possess is fellowship. The willingness to look after each other, to embrace and support each other instead of doing everything alone. And nature also taught us to keep calm and achieve the best result. The friendliness and the warmth of the locals brought us together. We went beyond friendship. We are now family. We went through many things in this journey. Obstacles, sadness, and stressful situations. But we also experienced happiness. We created togetherness, and we achieved our goal. This experience has strengthened us. shape us into better people, better than who we were before. One day we will wake up, far from here. We will remember the feeling of peace and love, the feeling that tied us to this place, a magical place, full of imagination and wonder.
I really want to contribute because I started my career as a volunteer 10 years ago, and now I have a quite good career and a lot of experience, a lot of networking in Laos, in ASEAN, and other countries in the world.
I volunteer because I have a really big concern toward children education right issues in Indonesia and also in other ASEAN countries.
Volunteering is sharing our time, sharing our energy, in order to make the world a better place.
I personally define volunteering as the act of giving to help and giving to benefit others without getting paid or having any expectation of getting something in return.
To me, volunteering is being a part of a cause that serves as a betterment for your community. And nowadays, I think the word community is not only limited to the country that we're living in, but it also extends to the rest of the world as well.
The best part about volunteering is I have the opportunity to see myself and experience how people's lives change, and what matters most is to see people smile.
To be a leader, a stronger, focused and fierce leader is why I want to join this program. To be given the opportunity to widen so many aspects in myself to help this community is something I want to be a part of.
Basically, I volunteer because it is worth my time. And knowing that I am helping someone, when I volunteer, I feel I am connected with people and its community serving towards one goal.
Youth is an essential source of community development because they have skill, potential, and creativity that can contribute to making a big impact to their country as well as to the ASEAN community as a whole.
Bringing together ASEAN as a whole is just a first step in bringing together a global humanitarian movement, and one that is bound to unlock a lot more potential in that.
I see IA as a great opportunity for me to develop myself, not only as an individual, but it also allows me to be a competent change maker in my community.
AIA is one of the most prestigious volunteering platforms across Southeast Asia, and I do believe with AIA I can maximize the potential or the impact that I could give back to the society.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Soyeon Choi, and I am a communication intern at the ASEAN Foundation. I'm honored to be the Master of Ceremony for the webinar series called eMpowering Youth Across ASEAN. eMpowering Youth Across ASEAN is a collaborative program between the ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation to encourage youth across ASEAN to create meaningful and sustainable impacts to the ASEAN community. Starting from 2018, eMpowering Youth Across ASEAN is actually engaging hundreds of youths across ASEAN to collaborate with local people and civil societies to boost sustainable development in the region through the spirit of volunteerism. This webinar series was officially launched in December 2020 with the first episode titled Becoming the Volunteer of Change, and the webinar series was continued by the second episode titled Advancing Social Cohesion and Tolerance Through Education and Youth. So, to continue its success, the ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation are proud to deliver the third webinar. This time, the topic is Empowerment of Young Women During COVID-19, which includes the key idea of gender equality, and this is one of the Sustainable Development Goals. As indicated in the name, today's webinar focuses on discussing the role of ASEAN youth and communities to sustain gender equality during COVID-19. Gender equality and women's rights are becoming one of the huge problems recently, since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated the economic and social status of women and has intensified the problem of domestic gender-based violence, advancing all the effort in empowering gender equality worldwide. So this is the perfect time to have this webinar to discuss about gender equality, since the promotion and protection of women's rights must be done collectively. Now, before we start the webinar, there are some housekeeping matters that I would like to share all of you. First of all, this event will be recorded and live streamed on the Facebook page. Second, to our audience, if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel below. Moreover, your microphones are muted and your videos are turned off, as this webinar is chat-based. Lastly, to get your e-certificate, please fill out the survey, and this will be announced again at the very end of this webinar. Now, to kick off, let's cheer up the moment with a short performance from Chiki Fauzi. She is a multi-talented artist coming from Indonesia. She is a singer, songwriter, animator, and she was also engaged in Open Ipin animator team before. And on top of that, she's also a social activist. Aside of her professional work, she dedicated her time to involve in social campaign to reduce poverty, foster education for disadvantaged children, and so many on. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ms. Chiki Fauzi to share a short remark and her wonderful performance. Hello, Ms. Chiki Fauzi. How have you been?
Hello, Soyeon. How are you?
I'm fine.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Chiki, would you like to give a brief remarks or inspiration for your for our wonderful youth participants across ASEAN in this webinar? As an artist and social activist, can you tell about yourself and what makes you interested to engage in social volunteerism?
All right. Hello, I'm Chiki, and this is my friend, my guitarist, actually, Gerda. We're from Indonesia, and I like doing volunteerism things because it feels good, to our heart. Like you can see other things from different perspective, and it began like a few years ago. I joined a movement called Indonesian Mengajar. Have you ever heard about it? Like Indonesia Mengajar is sending like uh, like brilliant young people to the rural areas to teach to elementary school to be a teacher. And then um, when first I hear about this movement and this NGO, like it moved my heart. And then I go to their office and then I ask them like, what can I do? A person like me to help this movement, but I cannot stay in the rural area for like 1 year because I have a job in Jakarta. And then uh, the founders said that you and a lot of youngster in Indonesia can make a movement. So it start from like making kelas inspirasi, like it's like the small the like the simple thing to attract people to do volunteerism. Like we ask people, we gather people to teach to elementary school about their uh, like about their a job, about what they're doing, and then actually it's just the beginning to make someone to fall in love to the volunteerism world. And then I start to join Dompet Duafa volunteer tourism volunteer, DDV, yeah, dompet apa volunteer. Then with them, I go to like many places. Like a few years ago, I go to when Aceh had their earthquake. I go there, and then I met a lot of. For me, it's inspiring people because, like, I met a doctor who volunteered himself to be a doctor, and then I said, why you do that? Because you're a doctor, you're brilliant, and you can do anything. And then he said, like, you know about mutmainah happiness? And then I said, what is that? And then he said, mutmainah happiness is happiness that the most purest happiness that you can get from helping people, and then you can see the bright from their eyes, say, like a grateful eyes that you see from them. It's when you see it, you have the purest, the highest level of happiness. It's called mutmainah happiness. And then from that day, like, I just love volunteerism world much more. And then it's just my style, you know, doing volunteerism, and then make an art, and then like make like mural, like, yeah, because I like to make my followers from my Instagram to contribute to make mural, to help me making mural in a very specific area. Like we a few months ago we make in a juvenile, I call it mural kebaikan in Indonesia. It's like a good mural to spread a goodness. And yeah, and I hope that whatever we do, we can spread kindness in everything we do. Okay, so please enjoy the first song from me and my friend. It's my very first single. It's called Bulan di Telinga. Come on, get. Merona bulan di telingamu yang senja menahan rasa rindu. Terapkan kau menjadi nyata dan senyuman damai terpana membalas kaku batin yang risau, menggoda bayang-bayang yang lama, biaskan gelap di sudut jiwa. Terapkan kau menjadi nyata dan senyuman damai terpana melayang bersama, mimpi yang indah. Merona bulan di telingamu yang senja menahan rasa rindu. Terapkan kau menjadi nyata dan senyuman damai terpana melayang bersama, mimpi yang indah. And the next one is also one of my single from my first album. It's in English. It's called A Stranger Again. Sorry, it's a little sad song. Come on, get. Run away, swimming in a cloud that fly away. Secretly walk outside the door, walk away, wondering where I can catch your heart. Run away, swimming in a cloud of tears that fly away. Secretly walk outside the door, walk away. Then wrapping your fingers around her heart. Ooh. Whenever you yell hard at me, I'm still standing still. Whenever you talk about me, and I'm still staying. Whenever you step out from my heart and you fly away, don't you hold her. Run away, swimming in a cloud of fears that fly away. Secretly walk outside the door, walk away. Then wrapping your fingers around her heart. Ooh. Whenever you yell hard at me, I'm still standing still. Whenever you talk about me, and I'm still staying. Whenever you step out from my heart and you fly away, that you hold her. Whenever you yell talk at me, I'm still standing still. Whenever you talk about me, and I'm still staying. Whenever you step up from my heart and you fly away, that you hold her. Whenever you yell hard at me, and I'm still standing still. Whenever you talk about me, and I'm still staying. Whenever you step up from my heart and you fly away, that you hold her. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Chike Fauzi, for your wonderful performance.
Back to you, Soyun.
And thank you for your sharing your experience. It was interesting to know the passion as a social activist, and also interesting to realize the connection of volunteer activists and also art. Moving forward, we'll have two opening remarks. The first one will be given by Her Excellency Ambassador Kamsia Kamarudin, Permanent Representative of Malaysia to ASEAN, and the second will be given by Dr. Nura Manaf, Maybank Group Chief Human Capital Officer and member of Group EXCO and executive sponsor Women Mentor Women Council. Now may I have an honor to invite Her Excellency Ambassador Kamsia Kamarudin to the screen.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Soyung, and thank you, Mbak Chiki, for the wonderful song. It is time like this. You totally agree that diplomat has nothing when you talk about abilities and capabilities, because Mbak Chiki this morning totally blew me away with her wonderful voice and her commitment and passion to volunteerism. My name is Kamsia and I'm the PR of Malaysia here in Jakarta. So good morning everyone and greetings from city of Jakarta. I'd like to acknowledge a couple of people first. I'd like to acknowledge members from the ASEAN Foundation, Dato' Nora from Maybank Foundation, my young friends from EYAA, the member panelists, and especially my young colleagues across the board from all over ASEAN. It gives me great pleasure, it gives me great honor to be speaking to you. I have to admit that I'm feeling slightly scared, I suppose, to be addressing a group of very young, bright, motivated people. But I tell myself that, if I can talk to my very opinionated, very stubborn 5 daughters, I can do everything else. I've been given the task of delivering keynote address to this third webinar by EYAA. It's a great honor, and I hope to be able to justify being selected as the key speaker. The topic is about pandemic, about COVID-19 and its effect across the region. I would like to seek your permission to be speaking a bit broadly on the topic, because I am very aware that I'm not an expert in anything. So I will try to see from the perspective of policymaker and a perspective of mother and also someone affected by COVID-19. I'll be sharing with you some statistics and some data, not to bore you, but I think data and statistics give you perspective on what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, my young colleagues, it has been a year and 3 months since the first COVID-19 case was recorded in ASEAN. That was in Thailand on 13 January last year. And in that 15 months, we have seen the numbers jump, the numbers scale up tremendously. While ASEAN is doing relatively less worse, if there is such a phrase, compared to many other regions in the world, it does not mitigate the devastating effect of the pandemic to our region, physically, mentally, economically, socially, and all spheres of life. As of this week, the number of people that has been infected by COVID-19 in our region is 2.3, which is huge from a people of 650 million. Our case of mortality is 500,000. We have a mortality rate of 2.3. As I was just saying earlier, we have done slightly better than many other regions, but that is not a consolation. In terms of economy, the World Bank, I mean, there are a number of statistics out there, but I'd like to take the data from World Bank. Saying that economic growth in ASEAN in 2020 is negative 4.3. The figure will be slightly better this year in 2021, but that again is just projection. It depends on how we handle COVID-19 this year and whether the efforts that we have put earlier will bear fruits. What makes the figures devastating is the fact that 30 million people are unemployed and 18 million has been thrown into poverty, with 3 million in extreme poverty. That is a huge number of people that has been displaced, that has been made worse by COVID-19. And this region has not seen anything like that for a long, long time. Some figures even suggested since the inception of ASEAN. The last huge economic crisis that we had was in 1997 and 1998, the Asian financial crisis. But even that is no comparison to what we are facing. When it comes to COVID-19, just as with any other epidemic, any other disease, we have to recognize the fact that the effect is to everybody, but disproportionately it is on women, it is also on young adults. And the worst thing I think is if you are a young female, a young adult. So again, as I said, I'm not an expert on this, but I will try my best to convey to you the severity of the situation so that, as policymakers, as government officers, and those who work with ASEAN, that we can work together with the young generation who I am sure have many bright ideas to share with us. I see that there is a topic that will specifically address the issue of effects on women. If I may, I would just like to mention a few. The disproportionate effect on women is mainly because the bulk of frontliners are women. I'm sure everywhere you go, the nurses, the doctors, many of them are women. And many of those who work in the health sector, whether formally or informally, are women. So they would be the first one to be affected. I remember this discussion we have when one panelist insists that the group that were impacted the most are men, not women. And I think to a certain extent, at the earlier stage of the pandemic, that might be the case because men seems to be more susceptible to COVID-19 than women. They die first. But what happened after that? Who's going to take care of the family? Who's going, even when the person is sick, the man is sick, the one who's taking care of that man would be the wife or the daughters. So you can see how it affects women more in that sense. At the same time, I think we do not have much problem now, but if you remember earlier, there was a lack of PPE, protective equipment. And of course, when you have limited numbers, the first person that would get that would be a male. And to make things worse, many of these PPE are probably designed with the shape and size of a male rather than women. So even if women have PPE, that might not be the best fit for women. Another thing is that, we've already been grappling with questions of scarce resources. And when it comes to pandemic, and of course, many of these resources, as they should be, diverted into combating COVID-19. At the same time, most of the diversion come from whatever little resources that we have allocated for fighting diseases, for fighting issues related to women. So invariably in pandemic, women suffer more than men. And another thing that I think probably in this region we have not talked quite extensively is the increase of domestic violence on women and children during pandemic. There is a figure from one NGO in Jakarta that after 3 weeks of lockdown, the cases of domestic violence in some parts of Jakarta increased by 3 times. Can you imagine? Just within 2 weeks, it's 3 times. And now we have been under lockdown for what? A year? You do the math. I mean, the figure is horrifying. And again, another disproportionate effect on women is the fact that women tend to do unpaid work. I mean, we are mostly involved in informal sector, but even if you're working, when you go back home, you're not being paid. And when the so-called breadwinner of the household are not employed anymore, can you imagine the situation at home? Again, as I was saying that in Southeast Asia and this part of the world, the informal sector make up between 60 to 70% of total employment. And women are again disproportionately employed in this sector, and especially in certain sectors like hospitality, travel, tourism, manufacturing of textile, retail, and also in hospitality related services and areas. Much of the employment given to women, or women shoulder that responsibility. So these are the sectors that are most badly affected by COVID-19. Ergo, women are the most affected sector of society. Another thing that we need to talk about when we talk about COVID-19 is about our young friends. Unfortunately, we do not have specific figures as of now in ASEAN to see how COVID-19 has directly and indirectly impacted our younger colleagues. Having said that, I mean, there are many anecdotes, there are many cases around. You just need to open your eyes to see the severity of the COVID-19 on our younger colleagues. Why is it rather difficult to find figures? I think is mostly because the effect on the younger population is not so much on the physical side. You don't have numbers of young people dying as those, for example, my age. And sometimes when it comes to statistics, as much as it is useful, it can also be very misleading. So you don't see young people being affected physically in terms of death, less than other sector and other age group of the population. But we have to recognize as well that just because you do not die, there are other things that can affect you. And I think this is something again that we need to talk more in this part of the world, and that is the effect of COVID-19 on the mental health. Again, as I was just saying, just because there are not figures of young people dying at the same rate or the same amount of adults, that give us a sense of false security that our young people are not being affected by COVID-19. It gave us a false sense of security, I suppose. So, as I said, I have 5 daughters, and all of them have not gone to school for more than a year. And I'd like to think that my kids are bright, you know, they are very resilient, they are tech savvy. Despite the lockdown, they are still in contact with their friends, with their relatives. But even with them, I could see that, you know, being locked down for more than a year is just not the way for anybody to live. And I think, again, as I said, we need to pay more attention to this issue. There are a number of ways, I think, how COVID-19 affect our younger generation. And I think one of the most important thing is this phenomena that is everybody is talking about, the lost 1 year of everybody's life, especially with the young ones. You know, I grew up expecting certain milestone to be celebrated in my life. For example, graduated from school, going to college, then you go to university, then you graduate. And you know, there will be a great graduation ceremony where you put on your mortarboard and everything, your parents come in, you take pictures. So for the people there is now, I don't think you guys will have that. My 3rd daughter is going to graduate from high school this year. And I mean, there's no feeling of whatsoever that she's going to graduate. My eldest daughter graduated last year. There was no graduation ceremony. So this kind of milestone that actually mark, I suppose, a transition of someone into another phase of life is not there. And how are we going to address this? I have to say that I have no idea. I'm sure you young people have lots of ideas. With your parents or with people around you. The rite of passage is not there, but you have to create your own, because otherwise, can you imagine? You cannot remember anything. I cannot remember anything I've done in the past year because basically there's no marker there. I think for us adults, we need to recognize the fact that teenagers are grieving. Just because they're not crying, you know, they're not throwing tantrum or whatsoever, does not mean that COVID-19 does not affect them. Again, back to the question, you have to ask yourself. And I think this is something that as a mother, I want to speak to my younger colleagues. We adults do not know much. This is also something new for many of us. So if you're expecting your parents or your teachers or the adults around you to solve your problem, that is not going to happen. What you need to do is to sit down with the adults in your circle of study or circle of life and talk to them frankly. As an Asian mother, I have to say that sometimes we parents, you know, really want to listen to our kids, but we parents need to change that attitude. And you have the responsibility to yourself as well as to your parents and as well as to your family to talk to your parents, to talk to the adult around you, as I said, and try to find ways on how we can weather COVID-19. It is something that I cannot remember anybody in my lifetime that has gone through COVID-19 as we are right now. So I'm calling on all of you, especially those that I'm very encouraged by a figure I read that 1 out of 4 youth in this region said that they have done some voluntary work before and during COVID-19. So you already have the experience, and you guys are very smart, and you guys are very bright. You guys are very savvy. You know how to use technology. You know how to reach out to each other, even without physical contact. You are always in touch with each other. And you know, I know I sound like a broken record, but I just wish to say again that we adults do not have the magic pill or the vaccine to lift us out of this misery caused by COVID-19. It is the duty of people like me. It is also the duty of the young generation to be able for us to sit down and discuss this issue and see how we can weather this very difficult time. And on that note, I want to say thank you to everybody. It's great talking to you, and I look forward to having further discussion and to discuss with you on ways how we can move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency Ambassador Kamsia Kamarudin, for your wonderful remarks. Next up, I would like to invite Datuk Dora Manaf to the screen to inspire all of us.
Thank you, Soyun Choi. You started this very well. And I'd like to also say thank you to Chiki and Gilda for putting us in a very good mood. I love the tempo and the melody. So that was really good. Her Excellency, Ambassador Kamsia Kamarudin, Permanent Representative of Malaysia to ASEAN, representatives from the ASEAN Foundation, the team from Maybank Foundation and Maybank, the panelists, I believe the cohort 1 change makers are here as well, and the rest of you, our future change makers, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. Now, I can't ask for a better person to speak before me, you know, because the context has been set by Her Excellency, Ambassador Kamsia. Ambassador Kamsia looks at this from a policy maker. Likewise, I would have that angle as well, but more from a corporate perspective. But I also have one similarity with Ambassador Kamsia. I've got also the lenses from my children, which is very helpful as well. They have given me a lot of education and learnings on how to weather this environment of change. And on that note, I think the first thing I want to make sure that we focus on today, in this session, I was going to say morning, it's about to cross to the afternoon in a few minutes. The backdrop, okay? As Ambassador Kamsia had, you know, rightly pointed out and given a lot of statistics and data related to our region, related to ASEAN. This is something that is happening globally. Okay, so first things first, and because I want us to be in this conversation coming in from an action orientation, and as Ambassador Kamsia said, all of you, 1 in 4, was it, are already actively involved, but we want to get the other 3 in 4 involved. And those are already active, we want to up the ante, become more involved, more, as Michelle Obama says, you've got a seat on the table, but you need to shake the table. Okay, so the backdrop is we are in a changing world. The world is changing. And I love this saying, hang on to this saying. In a changing world, the learners will inherit the world. Right? The learners will inherit the world. The learned will find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Now, Ambassador Kamsia mentioned that just now. Nobody has gone through the current changing environment. In fact, pre-COVID. So again, let's recognize that the changes that needed to happen, the changing world has commenced with the advent of the internet. So technological advancements, digitalization has been just accelerated by COVID-19. But for the pain and the losses, so without emphasizing those, but COVID-19 has also brought a lot of learnings, a lot of silver linings, right? That we must hold on to and use as we up the ante, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of what we are going to be doing and what you are going to be doing. And that's what I want to talk about. Because the changing world can be significantly better. This is the opportunity. All right, everybody. So learning from COVID-19, right? Let's make sure that the crisis will not go to waste. We need to grab it in terms of the theme for this morning of our conversation, in terms of empowering yourselves, youth, across ASEAN to actually shape the new world that we live in. All right. Now, a word that I like, that actually just came to my attention last year as we weather the lockdown and COVID-19. It's not a new word. It was from the 15th century. It's called respair. Now, I don't know how many of you raise your hand if how many of you have heard of the word. It's restoring, it's recovery after a period of despair. So that's what it's called, respair, right? So it's the return of hope after a period of despair. And that's exactly what you and I have gone through for the last 1 year. But again, as I mentioned, what do we focus on today and forward, right? So post-pandemic, yes, we're rapidly, hopefully, inshallah, God willing, going very fast with the vaccinations and the learnings. Again, it has to be learning. We are going to encounter more pandemics until and unless we fix the E in the ESG, right? The environment aspects that needs to be fixed globally, right? There will be another pandemic. But what we need to focus on is the economics and social models. Rethink these and rebuild trust, of course. All right. Now, before we go further on, so what do we need to look at, and what can I share with you in terms of how to think about, how to put this plan together? A few other numbers in addition to what Ambassador Kamsia had shared with us, right? Because I want to again anchor this to, it's not just a COVID-19, COVID-19 has just accelerated, it has amplified the digital, the need for digitalization to be responded to, and the need to cure the world, if you like, from an environment perspective, right? Pre-COVID already, 85 million jobs have been displaced or anticipated to be displaced. Okay. However, there is every positive indicator that the net effect is the new jobs are going to exceed the displaced jobs. Okay, so that again is something we need to hold on to in terms of a positive possibility coming up from the despair, if you like. Okay, and the other thing before we move on into the rebuild, right? I just want to again amplify what Ambassador Kamsia had said from a women perspective, right? Definitely, emerging data from various channels have shown that all types of violence against women and girls, particularly, as Ambassador Kamsia mentioned, domestic violence has intensified with the exacerbating factors that include, you know, you and I living in cramped conditions for such a prolonged time, which is unnatural, and the isolation with abuses, yeah, following the movement control order. And so, you know, there is gendered impact, right? And so we again need to look at, as I mentioned just now, as we rethink the social and economic structure, we need to look at the social and economic structure impacting women. Okay. In fact, it is not a nice term, but you must have also heard that economists, yes, have dubbed COVID-19's effect on women as a female recession, all right? But they've termed it a she-cession. Now, why is that? So I want to bring this from society and social just now to the workplace, right? 2 million women so far have thought about taking prolonged leave as a result of the experience in the last 1 year plus. And a proportion of them have already actually decided to leave the workforce altogether. Okay, so that's one portion of either a problem that I want to turn into an opportunity. And I'll emphasize this from a youth perspective as well, and women, okay? The other is what's contributing to the she-cession, if you like, right, is the point, again, that Ambassador Kamsa had mentioned that I will amplify here, in terms of the lopsided, if you like, guilt of women, you know, will have and has had from the burden of additional responsibilities in addition to work when you are working from home. So there is this blurring of work and household and everything. You know, you just need to be tip-top and always on all the time. So the burnt out, the burning out is actually contributing to a lot of this. But I am speaking to digital natives, right? And you have every characteristic, every feature that the rebuild requires, as Ambassador Kamsia mentioned just now. Because as we are rebuilding and resetting, we need to build better, by the way, right? Organizations are really wanting solutions from you and from everybody else from the context that I mentioned earlier, from a digitalization and humanization perspective. COVID-19 has taught us that and amplified what we knew before COVID-19, but we didn't take it too seriously. That technological advancements will only enhance humans. That's it. Will augment human performance, will actually make humans live better. But we actually didn't know how to use it well. So one of the silver linings that I personally have had from COVID-19 is truly knowing how to use some of these tools, these technological tools that we have, and experience it rightly and better and appreciate it more. This is one of them, Zoom. It was in existence even before COVID-19. But would we have chosen to have this conversation using this channel on its own? We wouldn't. Would we even consider a hybrid? I don't think we would, right? So yes, we have to take the term new normals very seriously. So no, when I say rebuild, when I say things will get better with, with hopefully with the vaccination, exercise going better from how it is today. But I'm not talking about going back to pre-COVID days, not in totality. We just have to understand how to reshape things and open up the opportunities as the Zoom that has been existing even pre-COVID, but people do not take it seriously because we are more comfortable. Human beings, we are creatures of habit. We are more comfortable with what we know. So we need to create the new aspects, the new symbols, if you like, the new aspects of what represents good, success, bad, and ugly. All right, all those need redefinitions. Now, how are you going to help? Like I said, you are very comfortable with having, when you have to actually work in a very agile environment. That's what you were born into, right? And you are used to collaborative because you've had collaborative tools in your hands, in your palm, from, I think, the time that you could make sense of what collaboration means, right? And you thrive, as I said, in an agile environment. Sharing for you, right? And I have tested this with my children. Sharing for you is not just caring. It's normal, right? And now we, people in commerce, we are talking about shared assets. The new models for businesses is about shared assets, right? The birth of Uber, the birth of Airbnb, and later all the new businesses of the K economy, right? The one that goes up, those all ride a lot on shared platforms and shared assets. And that's something that you are comfortable with. And as Ambassador Kamsa also mentioned, you have the ability to adapt and embrace new technologies because to you, it is normal. Now, when we say businesses are reshaping and we need new normals, it's because many of us are not digital natives who are now in the businesses, right? But like in Maybank, actually 50%, almost 50% of our population of 43,000 are actually digital natives. Digital natives from the definition that you were born from 1980 onwards, right? From the day that internet is already in existence in our lives. Okay, and the other thing that's going to be helpful for you, right? And for you to be conscious of so that you can help people like me, like Ambassador Kamsia, right? In your environment, right? To actually accelerate the changes. Is the willingness you have a willingness to sacrifice loyalty to previous tools when they no longer offer you the most effective solutions, right? And that's natural again to you. So that is fabulous. Now, I'm running out of time, but I want to quickly talk about what you can expect in a corporate environment that's changing. Again, let me emphasize, like a broken record, nobody will go back to an office post-COVID like it was before. Okay, so it is going to be different. Now, some of the changes or the more dominant aspects that will pepper the working landscape are existing in Maybank. and I'll rattle off some of these. One, there will be opportunity from a flexible workforce standpoint. One of the key lessons of digitalization and COVID is you have choice. And as women and youth, please know that you have choice. Okay, and so flexible workforce is something organizations will be very, very open to. You could think about that. Maybank has introduced a category called mobile workforce, which is the permanent work from homers. We also have gig workforce platforms called crowdtivation, and so forth, right? From a work perspective. From a women perspective, we've worked very hard to actually our representation of women from board to senior management to management is above global average. So at management, more than 40% of our managers are women. Okay, so those are the heartening, the opportunities, if you like, right? From a Maybank Foundation perspective, we have these programs as I mentioned, and so in working with ASEAN Foundation, clearly, right, there are so many aspects that you can be actively involved in. And this platform is so important for us to offer you. So similarly, the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN is one of Maybank Foundation's flagship programs together with ASEAN Foundation, working towards equipping young minds like all of you to implement social investment projects that will help us navigate through challenges at a local level. So everybody, please think about how you can get in there and be actively influencing everybody's circle of influence, and let's together rebuild better, starting from today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuramana, for your inspiring message. I'm sure that youth participating in this webinar also got the encouraging message from you to go through the COVID-19 pandemic. Without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, in this session, our special speakers will deliver their speeches. This session will be moderated by my lovely colleague, Julian. Once again, Julian, may I invite you to the screen?
Thank you, Soyin, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great day. My name is Julian Kisao, and I am a communications intern at the ASEAN Foundation, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. I'm sure we feel excited and inspired already after hearing the keynote speech. But now, let's refresh our mind and loosen our muscles a bit. I'd like to invite everyone to join an ice-breaking game. My co-intern Soyun will instruct you how to start the game. Soyun?
Thank you, Julian. For participants to enjoy the game, please visit menti.com. You can use your mobile device or web browser. Again, please visit menti.com. It is MENTI.com. Once you're logged in, please put the code 2831452. Again, 2831452. Please note that this game will give some hints on today's discussion topic. Hope you enjoy the Menti game.
Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to our Menti game for today. This game will give us some hint on about the topics that our dear speakers will talk about today. And so, yeah, let's just wait for everyone to join the Menti. So can everyone please go to menti.com and enter the code so that you can participate in our little game. Yeah, let's just wait for more participants. And for our dear Facebook watchers, you can also play the game just by going to the website or maybe commenting in the Q&A section of Facebook or comment section. Okay. Oh, there's already 55. Okay. More. Log. Everyone, please go to the website so we can have more participants. Okay, we only have 65. Okay. Let's just wait a little more. Oh, we only have 72, 73. So I hope everyone will enjoy this game. And by the way, what I will give you is some statements, and there's really no wrong or right answers in this. We just want to gather your perspectives on some insights about our women on the problems. Okay, we have 92 participants. Okay, we're close to 100. I hope everyone can join. Okay, let me start the game with our first question. What do you think are the biggest issues or challenges faced by women and girls nowadays? The option is online discrimination and misogyny, low incomes and double burdens, harassment and discrimination in the workplace, and domestic violence and abuse. 0 is the least problematic. Please note that. And 10 is being the most problematic. So can you please rate each of our category here to identify whether what is the least problematic or the most problematic? Okay, so far the most problematic statement we have here is harassment and discrimination in the workplace. And it's domestic violence and abuse. And I do agree that domestic violence and abuse are really prevalent nowadays with lockdowns being imposed, and we are mostly on our houses, and there's more chances for domestic abuse to happen. Okay, so next is harassment and discrimination in the workplace. I do believe that young women or women in general are more likely to be harassed in the workplace. Okay, so in connection to our first question, our second question is, what is the best way to foster empowerment of young women? So yeah, the choices are policy advocacy, social media campaign, entrepreneurship training, mentorship program, support organizations that empower young women. So among all of these, what do you think are the best solution? What do you think is the best solution that can combat all the problems that are stated from our previous question? Okay, so far, all of you, some of you, I mean, most of you have answered that supporting organizations that empower young women is a really good step in alleviating this harassment or discrimination that is happening within our women. And actually, one of women organizations I know is UN Women, and one of our speakers is hailing from that organization. So maybe she can give us some insights about how we can maybe empower young women or support the organization. So up next is policy advocacy, then social media campaign. I do believe that social media campaign is a really good solution in minimizing the effects of the discrimination against women, because mostly we are in the digital world, right? Because we are on lockdowns and we spend most of our times online, and everyone everyone just sees the content you put out there, and it's really useful that we use our platform for the right for in the right way, so that we can educate people about these issues. Okay, so thank you so much for participating in our game. From your answers, I can see that you're really enthusiastic about the topics that we will talk about today. So, okay, moving on. It is really important to shed some light on what are the biggest issues that women face today, especially during a pandemic like this. It is more important to pay attention to these problems and find out how we can come together as one to solve it. Now, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker for today, who is hailing all the way from Hawaii. Ms. Leslie Davis is a governance, peace, and security analyst for the UN Women Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific located in Bangkok, Thailand. Her portfolio areas include women, peace and security, preventing violent extremism, and promoting women's online activism. Prior to joining UN Women, Leslie worked for women's empowerment and refugee resettlement in the United States. She holds a master's degree in international affairs from the George Washington University in the USA. She will talk about online discrimination against women and girls during COVID-19. Miss Leslie Davis, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to be joining these other amazing panelists. Sure, start my video. Okay. And thank you for having me all the way from Hawaii. I can't wait to get back to Southeast Asia and Bangkok, where I've been working the last few years. Thank you to the ambassador and Miss Mana for their remarks, and also to Chiki Fauzi for the music. I will definitely be a follower from now on. So for the next 15 minutes, I'd like to talk to you about something that I'm sure you're all very familiar with, which is, of course, the internet, and how the internet, like the real world, can be a place of discrimination against women and girls, but it's also a place of really great potential for all of us. So first, I just like to tell a really short story about online misogyny. But to begin, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because I'm going to be using the word misogyny a lot. So I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with the definitions and what it means. And when I talk about it, I do mean both definitions. So the hatred towards women, as well as the second, which is that kind of ingrained prejudice against women that most societies hold. So this is a really short story about a young woman named Tasman, who was an activist who joined a UN Women event in Myanmar, which taught young activists how to kind of better their video editing skills so that they can make videos to speak out online against hate speech and sexism. So she made a really excellent video and she posted it to her Facebook page after our training. And literally within about 2 hours of posting, someone reposted her video with this message: "Such a nasty thing I've ever seen. Please don't try to blame me as a misogynist." So first of all, like, bro, how are you going to post something that's very misogynistic and then say not to call you a misogynist? I think maybe he doesn't actually know what the word means. And secondly, Tasman was so upset by this, and she was receiving a lot of advice from her friends to ignore it, because as women and young girls who are, active online, they get messages like this all the time. However, eventually she did decide to report it to Facebook, and luckily Facebook removed the post. So this is a pretty mild case of online bullying, but I want to ask 3 questions for you to ponder. First of all, would this guy have ever commented on a man's video calling him nasty and saying that the video is nasty? Do you think he knew he was being sexist when he posted it, given that he asked not to be called a misogynist? Secondly, do you think this guy would have actually come up to her in real life and said, like, "Hey girl, I think your video is nasty"? I would say probably definitely he would not do that. At least most people wouldn't. And third, did he actually suffer any consequences for being such a rude and mean person? And I would say, in my opinion, not really. Because now we live in a virtual society, and this offline misogyny and violence against women extend into our online worlds, but it makes it so much easier for people to commit these acts without consequences. And I'd say that girls are targeted online oftentimes just because they're young and because they're female. And if they're politically outspoken or journalists or activists, if they're disabled, if they're of a minority, or if they're LGBTQ, it gets even worse. And this harassment can range anywhere from being put down for your opinions to being threatened with violence or sent unwanted pornographic images, or this can even transcend into real life stalking and violence. And just to, caveat men are also harassed online and men are also bullied online. We know this, and we, it's not right when it happens to men, but when women are the target, online harassment quickly descends into very sexualized hate and threats. And when male users are the attackers, they often target women's bodies and sexuality. So that's one reason why we see so many rape threats online. And this is because online violence is an overt expression of these deeply rooted gender inequalities that we have in our real life offline societies. So there are other examples of these in the ASEAN region. These are just a few that I remember from the news recently. For example, the former Miss Universe Malaysia, Sabrina Benit, she just won a cyberstalking case against a man who would literally message her when she was out with friends and say where she was, who she was with, and what she was wearing. Or in Indonesia, I remember reading some articles after the Women's March in Jakarta in 2018. Some of the leading young activists went home and logged on Instagram after the march, and they had hundreds of DMs insulting them, threatening them, saying they look like dogs, or that these guys online would remember each woman's face so that when they saw her on the street, they would rape her. So this is not uncommon. There was a survey in early 2020 by Plan International that revealed that globally, 60% of women and girls have experienced harassment on social media platforms, and 1/5 of them have either quit or reduced their social media use because of it. And I'm sure a lot of people in the audience today have their own stories. I know I have a few of my own. So how did COVID affect all of this? And how does this really converge with the life that we've been living for the last year? Well, first of all, more people are online now, thanks to COVID, than ever before. I read that as many as 40 million people in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand came online for the first time in 2020. And that pushed the total number of internet users in Southeast Asia to over 400 million. And also the online world has become even more important to us during COVID. The internet is, a lifeline for those of us who are isolated at home and a really important tool for staying connected to the wider world. We also use it for work, we use it for play. Our entire world is online now. So this is like what I imagine I look like at my house during the lockdown. I was basically, when the lockdowns hit in March and April last year, just found myself working from home. I was on my computer and my phone like 20 hours a day. And of course, I fully recognize what a privilege it was that I could work from home. But at the same time, it was so exhausting being online all the time. And so this made us kind of like wonder, myself and some other UN Women colleagues, like if we're online this much, what are these online trolls and online misogynists up to? So we set out to conduct a quick research to find out. So I want to tell you about this research that we conducted during the first lockdown period last year. But first, I just want to kind of give a warning that the research is not robust enough for us to draw hard conclusions because we were really limited by time and resources since COVID came like quite quickly. We just wanted to do the research quickly to get an idea, but we can't really draw hard conclusions. So what is the research? We wanted to answer the question, is COVID-19 affecting online misogyny and hate speech against women in Asia? And if so, how? So to answer this question, UN Women partnered with an organization called Mythos Labs. And we created a data set in 9 languages consisting of nearly 200 misogynistic words and phrases in each language. So I personally spent days reading some of the most hateful forums on the internet to find the words and phrases that might be relevant to our research. And my colleagues in other UN Women offices did the same. So these are some of the words that we kind of came across in our research when we were starting to do this work. So we then used a crawler algorithm to search Twitter and Facebook for the terms we had identified in combination with keywords or phrases that indicated that the tweet or the post was about or was inspired by COVID-19. And we collected all these tweets and posts from April 23rd to June 5th, 2020. And we also collected data using Google Trends to monitor what people were searching for. So out of all of the searching that we did, for the ASEAN countries, we found statistically significant data in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So what did we find? First of all, to answer our question, yes, COVID did have an effect on online misogyny, just like the kind that I discussed before. In fact, the first main finding of this research is that the volume and interest in misogynistic content increased during COVID-19 lockdowns. In all of the countries included in our Google Trends analysis, we saw spikes in relative search terms for misogynistic, profanity, terms like you saw on the page before here during the period related to the initial lockdowns. In Indonesia and the Philippines, these searches peaked during the month of May. For example, you see here in the slide, the search volume for the term feminazi peaked significantly in May here in the red box, and it's more than doubling the search volume from the entire year prior. When we looked at the data on Twitter, we saw that our research captured several COVID-related misogynistic tweets over the monitoring period. A large majority of these tweets came from so-called men's rights groups, sexist organizations, or individuals that associate themselves with such groups. And overall, these COVID-related misogynistic tweets and posts peaked during lockdown period, as you can see here in the graph, and they've been steadily decreasing ever since. Furthermore, we found that men were posting most of this content, so about 97% on Facebook and 98% on Twitter. The second thing that we learned in this research was that sexist organizations were spreading new COVID-related narratives online. So organizations such as Men Going Their Own Way and local chapters in each country began spreading COVID-related memes, articles, and posts during the lockdown period to kind of further their messaging and win new followers during this really traumatic time for people. And here I've listed some of the top examples and the narratives that they posted about week over week. So you can see some of the examples like women need to be disciplined during lockdown, or COVID is really showing us the hollowness of feminism because, you know, feminists don't care about COVID. At the same time, they also came up with all of these like crazy sexist memes, which spread quickly between the members in the groups. So here are just a few examples of these memes targeting feminist movements, also calling women dangerous and annoying. Lastly, what we learned from this research is that misogynistic Twitter accounts are impacting the attitude of their followers. The researchers use a neural network to assign a misogyny score to each tweet captured in our study, with the most misogynistic tweets being 1 and the least misogynistic tweets being 0. And then they use these scores to determine the impact of these misogynistic accounts. And we found that misogynistic users, as I'll call them, are causing other users in their Twitter network to become, on average, 21.9% more misogynistic. So this figure illustrates what happens to the mean misogyny score of Indonesia's Twitter network with and without the misogynistic accounts. You can see that increase by 25%. And here we see it the same in the case of the Philippines. Their mean misogyny score increased by 19%. So we see that misogynists are having a disproportionately greater impact on the opinions of Twitter users relative to the rest of the accounts that these Twitter users follow. So what are the consequences of all this? Like, what does it all really mean for us, and what does it mean for you? Online violence is really a public health issue that can include effects such as physical, sexual, psychological, or economic harm to individuals, as well as the erosion of self-esteem. I think the greatest impact that girls and young women are experiencing online right now is self-censorship. Women and girls are censoring themselves so that they don't receive any backlash online, and that's exactly what the abusers want. Because online violence attempts to keep women from equally enjoying a major part of our public sphere, something that's such a part of our life, so ingrained in what we do every day. And some women even leave social media altogether after being harassed. Safe internet access really is fundamentally, I think, a human rights issue, because young women and girls should have the same opportunity to make their voices heard online. Online abuse stops women from participating in her community. It keeps women politicians from running and winning office. It silences online activists, and it can and it has crossed over into real physical harm many times. So I think people really need to understand that it's real violence with real impacts. So what can we do? What can you do today? Well, first, I think we need public awareness that, online misogyny, this online bullying and discrimination against women and girls, it really hurts people. It really hurts women and girls. And we also have to be aware that there are people out there, misogynists and misogynistic groups, that are using anything that they can think of, be it even a global pandemic, to promote their destructive agenda. And while some people, think these are just words online, as we saw today, that's not correct. It's not harmless. During COVID, our work is online, our social lives are online, our free time is online, our family time is online. This is our life. So it's really important that people recognize that this is a problem. Second, I want women and girls to know that they're a part of social media and it's their right to be online. It's their right to have their voices heard. And there are tools and tips that can help us be safe. For example, Instagram recently added a restrict anti-bullying tool that is available to everyone. UN Women in Asia is also developing a self-led module on keeping safe online and fighting back against hate speech. And this will be available in just a few months in 6 different regional languages as well as English. And you can follow us on social media to receive updates about this opportunity. But it really is just about learning more about how you can keep yourself online and learning that you do have a right to be there. No one should be able to push you off. And for the guys that are listening today, I think it's really important that when you see other men doing these types of things online, it's really important to call them out as another guy. The third thing that we should do, we need to hold our leaders and our influencers to higher standards, because, words really matter. And those in the public spotlight really do set an example for the rest of us, either by enabling hate or pushing back against us. So we need to really reach out to our politicians to do better when regulating to the online space, and really encourage them to take online violence seriously and tell them that it does matter to us as their constituents. And fourth, we need to fight back. We can't let the negative voices be the only ones that you hear online. So I want to encourage everyone, especially who's on the call today, to really take your activism online, advocate for issues you're passionate about, be it gender equality, healthcare, education, whatever. We have to spread positivity online. So that's the end of my presentation. If you want to read the full brief detailing the research that I've just spoke about, you can find it online on UN Women's website. And that's all I have. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to hearing from the remaining panelists.
Thank you so much for that really insightful speech, Miss Leslie. We deeply appreciate that you graced us with your presence despite our time difference. And I do agree that women are always being subjected to these nasty remarks in the online world. And for one is the never-ending issue of slut shaming and also blaming women and their clothing when they are harassed. And it's a problem integrated within the misogyny society, and I do agree that men should call out their fellow men when it comes to this. I also think it is important that we are here together and we are gathered and we are learning what should we do to combat these problems. Up next, our speaker will talk about empowering young women through social entrepreneurship. Ms. Nikki Clarencia Prathiwi is the Chief Operating Officer of Peaceable Enterprise, and at the same time, she is the Chief Marketing Officer and founder of tenoonplusverdayabareng.com. It is really impressive with all the awards that she has garnered, such as winner of ASEAN Social Entrepreneurship 2020, winner of Women Inspiration from Narasi TV, and much, much more. I would like to welcome Ms. Prathiwi to the screen.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for Julian to introduce me. Yeah, sorry, I cannot use my virtual background. So for you who hasn't known me before, I will play my video that show what I have done especially at Indonesia for disability community in Indonesia, especially for empowering person with disability and also young women at Indonesia. So let's enjoy the video.
Keterbatasan fisik bukanlah halangan untuk bisa membantu sesama. Inilah Niki Clarencia Pratiwi yang akrab disapa Niki. Dirinya kerap membantu para penyandang disabilitas untuk mampu hidup mandiri. Niki sendiri adalah penyandang tunadaksa. Di saat usianya 1 tahun, ia harus merelakan kaki kirinya untuk diamputasi. Bulian dan ejekan pernah ia dapat karena kakinya itu. Perempuan yang hobi traveling ini sempat bekerja di sebuah perusahaan multinasional. Ia bergabung di Disable Enterprise, sebuah wadah usaha milik Anggi Yudhistia. Wanita berusia 30 tahun ini juga menjadi co-founder di Tenun ID, sebuah wadah usaha yang mempekerjakan kaum marginal dan difabel di Indonesia Timur.
Haji Hamid, 52.
Dharma, ada 50 tahun kapal.
Bagaimana awalnya itu sehingga kita mau belajar menjahit?
Jadi kita dimasukkan dulu di asrama itu, belajarnya di situ tuh, jadi
karena ada kesempatan begitu.
Iya.
Sebetulnya awalnya hanya coba-coba, tapi setelah coba-coba begitu ada seperti bisa menghasilkan sesuatu, jadi ditekuni.
Dari sinilah Niki tergerak untuk membantu kaum difabel dengan mendirikan berdayabareng.com, sebuah platform yang berfokus dalam pemberdayaan disabilitas untuk menciptakan disabilitas yang unggul. Pengalaman hidupnya ini ia bagikan dalam kanal YouTube Double Difabel bersama Fani Evrita yang juga penyandang tunadaksa.
Kita mau bahas disabilitas tapi yang rempong dan asik. Iya benar.
Bagi Niki, menjadi disabilitas bukanlah pilihan. Ia harus tetap percaya diri dan tetap semangat menjalani hidup.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much for you who already watched my video. So it's a little bit about what have I done at Indonesia, especially to empowering person with disability and also young women. So my name is Niki Clarencia Pratiwi. I'm a physical disability women using prosthetic leg. I'm a socialpreneur that has built 3 social enterprises in Indonesia that focusing and also contributed to create empowered disability community and also inclusive environment at Indonesia. Yes, next. Okay, so if we're talking about social enterprise, maybe most of you is quite confused between what is a social enterprise and what is another business social like that. So let me clarify about the definition of social enterprise. In Indonesia, government has been set the definition of social enterprise as an enterprise which has a social vision and missions to address social problems in the community and to bring a positive impact to social welfare and national environments. This is the main highlight or the main point. It reinvests its profit in the social missions, empowers the community and exercises good governance principles in managing its business. So it's quite different between a social enterprise and maybe you maybe know about the CSR of several company. If we are talking about the CSRs, it's only a half or a several percent of a profit from its business to give back to the beneficiaries or to give back to the community. But if we are talking about social enterprise, it definitions called like reinvest again its profits. So it's talking about how big, how growth the impact, how benefit the beneficiary to get the impacts and also to get the visions and to make the big missions and get to have a big beneficiaries. Next. Yes, maybe when you saw that I'm a disability person, but I'm just starting a social enterprise back 4 years ago after I graduate my master degree, and then I'm started thinking about my purpose of life. I have seen several questions in the Q&A column that as a woman, what kind of things that we can start and to begin a social enterprise and then to think how to empower person with disability or maybe young women. I always say it always starts with a why and dreams. Back in 2017, after I resigned from my multinational company, I'm started thinking, what is my purpose of life? What is the things that I want to do in this world, in this community, and then what is the legacy that I want to left when I left the world. And then I found these principles called, this coming from Japanese principles called Ikigai. And then Ikigai explained to me about the purposing of life and then how that I can find it. So back in 2017, I'm starting to thinking, what is the why of my life? What is the dream of my life? What is the legacy that I want to left when I left this world? So I start with what is the things that I'm good at. Back in 2017, I was working as a marketing representative for Indonesia. So I'm really have an experience in marketing things for 5 until 7 years. And then I think that I'm really good at marketing. And then this is the things that this is the skills that I really good at, and this is the things that I really love to do. I really love to talk with the peoples. I really love to meet a new peoples. I really love to meet the new community and really love to think about what kind of activity that we can do together and then have some missions in that. Start with the things that I'm good and the things that I'm love. And then I'm continue about what is the world's needs. As you know that I'm a disability person, and then I'm start to find a disability community at Indonesia. What is the things they need? What is the things that they really need to be empowered? What is the stigma that's still facing by them? What kind of things that I can help? And then after I find disability community, several of them is still facing the mental block, they're still facing the negative stigma, they're still facing they're still seen that to be pitied, and it's hard to them to get a proper education and also a proper job. And then that's the things that the disability community needs. After I know what disability community needs, I start to build social enterprise with my partner. that have a same mission and visions to be to empowering person with disability. After I going back and forth, meeting several partners, meeting several stakeholders, I believe that these things can become my provisions and also my vocation. I can get a settled income from here. I can get a settled life from here, and then I also can do the things that I'm good at because I love to meeting a new peoples and love to meeting a community. I also do the things that a disability community needs. So for everyone, maybe say ask this how that we can start to do a social enterprise, to help young women or young people in your community or in your country. Maybe you can use the process that I already used this and using this principle also. Thank you. Next. Okay, if you're talking about the ecosystem of social enterprise, there is the fact that I just know that most of young leaders are dominating the social enterprise sectors, because we know that around 50% until 65% of total population at the world is coming from a young person, and then young person nowadays is no longer talking about themselves. It's not longer talking about what can they do for themselves, but they start to talking about others. They start to talking how to make a good governance, how to make sustain environments, how to give back what they have to the community, and etc. So that's the reason most of young leaders are dominating the social enterprise sector. And I believe that 235% who saw this webinar is also the young leaders from all over Asians. And then the social enterprise workforce is dominated by women. As we know that social enterprise is creating jobs faster for young or old women and disabled people. Why is that? Because if you're talking about social enterprise, we are going to talking about the beneficiaries that we are want to do. What kind of missions, what kind of vision that we want to do in several community, in several beneficiaries. And most of beneficiaries is coming from young community, women community, and disabled people community. When we build a social enterprise that have a mission to empowering women, disabled, young, and also old community, we start to make a work first. We start to make a work environment start with disabled, young, and women. So in my company, 80% of my colleague, 80% of my partner, or all of my partner is a women. So I believe if we want talking about a social enterprise that you want to build, it will be make a new environment to empowering young person and also women and also disabled person. Thank you. Next. Okay, another ecosystem of social enterprise that you know I must make it bigger. Yeah, most of local communities, women and young people are the main target beneficiaries of social enterprise. As I mentioned before, that these three kind of community is become missions of several social enterprise and most of social enterprise. Why? Because this community has been get a negative stigma. They still find it's hard to get a proper education. It's still find hard to get a proper job. So as a growth of social enterprise environments, they start to find their own community. They start to find how to empowering together, and then through the social enterprise they can combine what kind of skills they can do, and then they can be empowered together. And then
I beg your pardon, Miss Nikki, but you only have a minute to wrap up the session. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, can we next to the last slide? Maybe that's the close of. Okay, so if we are talking what kind of pillar that we really need concerns, if we are talking about to build a social enterprise, this is the 5 pillar that I always do. The first is pillar that talking about people or citizen centers. You must know the needs of your beneficiaries, and you must know what kind of things that your beneficiaries needs. The second pillar is about priority focus and impact oriented. So you must know about the impact that you will make after you build a social enterprise. The third pillar is about the emergency mindset. In this pandemic COVID-19, there is many social enterprise has been affected, but as a social enterprise that have the right missions to local communities of women, we must think about the emergency mindset. We must think of collaborations. We must think adaptive adaptation things. The fourth pillar is about systemized and ICT based. Several of young person and women's is lag behind about the ICT and technology. We must know that if you want to build social enterprise, you must also think about the technology and ICT. The fifth pillar is about continuous human capital development. If you want to build a social enterprise, you must understand about what kind of human capital development that you want to do for your beneficiaries. So maybe that's all about my presentation. I hope that for you who still confused about how to build a social enterprise, how to start to build a social enterprise, that can have a little glimpse for my presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Nikki. And on to our last speaker. This is really interesting because she will give us some inspiring stories of women's participation in managing the pandemic. Our speaker is Miss Nurul Nabila Shohimi. She is the Community and Youth Development Officer at Econites, which is one of our CSO partners for empowering youth across ASEAN. She has also completed many projects such as cooking oil for cleaning program for communities of River of Life under Shell Sustainable Development Grant, and then Green Ramadan campaign under River of Life. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Ms. Shohimi to the screen.
All right, thank you, Julian. And hi, everyone. Good day to everybody across the world. Hello to Dr. Nora Manaf and also Her Excellency Ambassador Kamsa Kamaruddin, to all the Maybank Foundation and the ASEAN Foundation team members. Thank you so much. My name is Nabila Shoimi and I am from Econites. So before I start my presentation, let me just share my slides over here. All right. And because of a bit of time restriction, I will shorten a bit of my presentation, in which I hope you don't mind, but the organizer will share the slides with you all. All right, so this is the presentation, Inspiring Stories of Women's Participation in Managing Pandemic. And as I mentioned, I'm from Econites, and for your information, Econites is a Malaysian non-governmental organization that's founded by Dr. Yasmin Rashid, and under the leadership of our program director, Mr. Fadi Bakhtiar. And Econites is actually a youth-led environmental organization, mark the words youth-led organization. So a little bit of background. Back then, we used to run a lot of environmental activities or engagement with communities. But as we go along the road towards sustainability, we began to incorporate the two other pillars of sustainability, which is social and economy. And that's how we came about to this, that's how we came about to be involved in ASEAN Cares. So basically, ASEAN Cares is actually a humanitarian project that contributes to community resilience during the pandemic. How do we do that? Is through the distribution of food supply and hygiene kits, sanitation facility with gender appropriate features, as well as education on pandemic and hygiene care. So of course, ASEAN Cares, Econites couldn't have done ASEAN Cares if it's not with the help of the whole team. For your information, the whole team under ASEAN Cares, whether it's the program members or the volunteers, they're all young people, and half of them are actually young women. So those are the components of ASEAN Cares. And the ecosystem of ASEAN Cares that consists of social support, community resilience, youth participation, and lastly, women empowerment, because more than half of the people in ASEAN Cares, whether it's the organizing team all the beneficiaries, they are all women. More than half of them are women. All right, so these 4 components of the ecosystem actually defines the stories that I will be sharing with you in the next slide. So now let's go to the stories. So my story consists of 3 chapters that are based on the key actors of ASEAN Cares: women beneficiaries, women volunteers, and lastly, women program leaders. Now let's go to the first chapter. Putting on many caps. So putting on many caps refers to the young women beneficiaries of ASEAN Cares. And there are 2 stories and there are 2 sub-stories in this chapter. The first story is about the single mothers of a refugee committee that we reached out under the care of our outreach partner, Women for Refugee, and they are based in Selayang, Selangor. Now, when we talk about single mothers, a lot of us generally would imagine the very heavy responsibility on their shoulders, which is taking care of the huge family. And these single mothers are just empowering and inspiring for me because their situation did not hinder them from acquiring skills to grow themselves, to develop themselves. So for your information, Women for Refugees actually run activities such as language classes and fundamental digital classes for the refugees. So these single mothers actually went into the class to get more of these skills. They even brought their children, and I also observed some of the young women who brought in their younger siblings into the class. And while they are managing the younger kids, they are also, learning in these classes. I don't know how they do it, but it's just very inspiring. So some of these single mothers and young women shared with me that they wish to run their own businesses, online businesses, because since it's pandemic, physical business is not really that lucrative. It's not doesn't have that much potential. So they want to run online businesses. So what did they do? They joined the classes and get these digital skills. Why? Is because they want to take care of the family. That is their motivation. They didn't really, it didn't really stop them from that. All right. And secondly is that second story would be the young woman in the Seletar Committee based in Johor Bahru. Now, sorry, I have a mess. Okay, all right. They told me to cut a bit shorter. All right. So this young, where was I? Okay. So the demography, the economic demography of the Seletar Committee, which is actually an indigenous committee in Johor, a lot of them are fishermen. But because of the sea pollution that's been going on, and then when pandemic comes in, they have less catch, they lost business, they lost customers. So what can the male members of the family do? They have to work harder. They have to go out, work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Some of them didn't even get to come home and spend time with their family. So while they are away, who takes care of their house? Who takes care of the household? It will be the female team, it will be the female members, whether it's the daughters, the wives, the mothers, they are in charge of the household. Some of the young women that I spoke to also shared that they work as mussel collectors, like collectors who go to the coastal area to collect mussels. So collecting mussels is actually not an easy job. I've personally done it before under the hot sun. We have to go to the rocky areas. It's quite dangerous. Under the hot sun, it can be very exhausting, physically exhausting. But the reason why they went out to collect mussels is because since you can't catch that much fish in the ocean, perhaps the mussels can help to give a little bit of more income. So that's why the young women are willing to go out and physically challenge themselves. But again, because they want to take care of their household, it's about survival during the pandemic, they went all out. Now let's go to the second chapter, which is Youth Without Boundaries. So this chapter refers to the ASEAN Cares team members and volunteers. Now we have half, like what I mentioned, half of them are females. And basically on top of my head, there are about two challenges that I can share with you. The first one will be the physical challenge. Now, a lot of us can only see from the front end of humanitarian projects where we see people going out and distributing the aid or the supply to the beneficiaries. That task itself is exhausting. But on the back end of this humanitarian project is the preparation. The preparation is more exhausting. Why? Is because for Econites, we actually pack the items on our own. We transport them on our own, although we have lorries, but we still have to distribute them everywhere. So the female members, for them, it's physically challenging. on average, for each distribution event, we pack about 100 to 150 sets of hygiene supply and another 100 to 150 sets of food supply. So in total, there'll be about 200 to 300 sets on average. And the suppliers could only send the items to us 2 days or 1 day before the distribution event. So you can imagine it's really, really, we have to work very fast. Everybody has to put 100% focus in it. And that's when, half of the female members will go down and start packing. It's physical challenging. Packing, distributing everything is very physical challenging. But that didn't stop the team members to move on. The second challenge will be more of our members who consist of individual without status. Now, individual without status mean that they do not have an official identification document due to certain situations. And we have these individuals in our team. So for these individuals, it's actually quite risky for them to travel during the movement control order because ASEAN Cares was coordinated halfway through MCO, movement control order, in short, MCO. But that didn't really stop them because number one, we managed to provide them like a support letter as an official document. And secondly is that, because of the motivation that they want to help, they just came over and help us out. They worked their way out as well. And then some of them who dare not go through the risk, they help us from their home, meaning digitally. So either they spread awareness about the ASEAN Cares, or they create digital content for us because digital campaign is part of ASEAN Cares approach. I wish to share more, but I've got to cut off the time a bit. Let's go to the next chapter. Now, next chapter is about acknowledging mental health. This is the last chapter. And mental health, we know that although it's now widely being discussed, it's still considered a taboo in certain areas or certain families. Personally, this is actually quite close, very close to me, because this chapter is about myself as a project leader, as well as my colleague. Her name is Farah. She is the communication officer of EcoNites as well as for ASEAN Cares. Farah and I both are diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Both have different scalability, but mine is severe anxiety and mild depression, which can be really hard for the two of us. We have our dark moments where we go down to that rabbit hole and we don't feel like we want to work, or we can't focus on things. We just don't want to do anything. We had those dark moments, and for ASEAN Cares, I nearly gave up on myself, but I managed to suppress it, and thankfully, not only through myself, but also through the team, because the team, and now thanks to Fadli Bahtia, my director, he encouraged all of us to have open discussion, to acknowledge mental health, to talk about mental health, to understand mental health. Why? Is because with team members who have deeper understanding about mental health, that's when they know when to come and support you when you go down that rabbit hole. So when they see me and Farah going down the rabbit hole, they are on standby to help us out, to back us up. Either they temporarily take over our roles or tasks, or some of them with their own magic, they will be there for us physically and digitally to bring us back up the rabbit hole. So that is how Farah and I managed to go through and conduct ASEAN Cares with the help of the team. Now, before I move on to the last slide, which is actually a video, I'm afraid I may not be able to share the video with you, but I want to highlight two key messages from the stories that I share. The first key message is support system. So you can observe support system in all the stories that I share, whether it's from the Women for Refugee, for the single mothers, or the trust between the family members in the Seletar County, or from EcoNites to the team members itself. That is a support system that will lead to my second key message, which is the response or the outcome from the existing support system. Because of the support system here, these women managed to carry out in their very own ways to face the pandemic, to manage the pandemic, and in their own capacity, whether it's managing household, children, education, self-growth, your own mental health or your health, they are able to manage it because of this support system. That's why it's very important, in conclusion, it's very important for us to be very actively involved in volunteerism or any projects, initiatives that will provide support system to communities or individuals who need it, especially during the unprecedented times of pandemic. It's very important. So the support system, the support system will keep us going. And as what Dato' Nora mentioned, the pandemic will still keep going on. The support system is very, very important for us. So that's why at the end of this presentation, I would like to encourage everyone, especially the young people, the young women, please be involved and support each other. My next slide is on the video, but for Julian, do I have time or is my time cut off now?
I'm so sorry, but we do not have enough time because we still have to do Q&A. So sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. This video will be, this presentation will be shared with all the audiences. Yep. So no worries, you all can actually click on the video and watch it later, yeah? Okay, thank you very much. Other than that, you can also go to Econite's social media. We also post these videos. You can watch it, our experience. You can also watch it over there. All right, thank you so much. And over to you, Julian.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rahimi, and to all the speakers for the insightful discussion. Now we are going to start the Q&A session. I will read some questions that are sent by our dear participants. And to our panelists, please note that you only have a minute to answer the question. And since we have very limited time, we can only take very limited questions. So for our first question, it is addressed to Datuk Nora Manaf. It says that learning mindset is not as common as it should be. How does Datuk Nora effectively influence more people, especially the learned, to have this?
Okay. All right. This is my quick answer. Okay. I use both carrot and stick, both from a personal life as well as in Maybank, in a corporate world, professionally and personally. So carrot, I try to enlighten and make people aware. So I give a lot of time towards speaking platforms like this, because I believe, as I encourage everybody, that we can make a difference, and making a difference means being out there. That's the carrot. And then, of course, recognize people when they do it. Stick, in Maybank, for example, we do a lot of checks, and we do not, we make sure that people understand the implications of not learning and not wanting to change, and encourage them again. But the stick is, if we tell them, if you are no longer learning, you're no longer relevant, you may find yourself without a job very soon. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Datuk Nora Manaf. Now, our next question is addressed to Miss Nikki Pratiwi. The question is, what to do to make the young women be entrusted by society to lead a social entrepreneurship, whilst the stigma is strong over women as not being able to be assertive in making decisions. So what are your opinion on that, Miss Nikki?
Yes, hi everyone. So sorry, the music is quite strong. So yes, if we are talking about how to change the stigma and then how to engage the young persons to build a social enterprise, we must really know understanding about what kind of visions and missions that they want to build a social enterprise. That's the first thing. And the second one, we must really clarify about what kind of needs that the beneficiaries and the communities, that your own communities needs. So, and then find the right partners and also the mentors in the second path that you, when you want to build a social enterprise. During this pandemic, I do several collaborations and also coordination with other social enterprise, especially that have the same vision and missions. I think this is a good start, that if you want to build a social enterprise, you can start with the collaborations with the several campaigns and also several social enterprise, so you can understand and get a new insights and new lesson learning from them. maybe that's a quick answer from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And for our next question, it is addressed to Her Excellency Ambassador Kamarudin. The question is, during this pandemic, women are the most affected by the economic crisis. In addition, women are not only have to work twice as much as men, but we also have to take care of their families or domestic needs. Are there any specific efforts that are being forced by the ASEAN governments to eliminate gender pay gap? Hello, Her Excellency. I believe you are on mute.
Yeah, hi. The short answer to that, if you're asking about specific measures taken by the government during pandemic, then there is none yet. There's a lot of discussion going on, and it is one of the main issues when we talk about formulating new policies and new procedures. If before COVID-19, it's very much the effort of the individual governments. Some are doing better than others. I would like to urge my young colleagues to continue pressuring and to continue to talk to your government to make equal pay part of your conversation with your government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Her Excellency. Now, our next question is for Miss Leslie Davis, and the question is, someone from the chat box asked this, what would you encourage or advise to those women who have been sexually harassed before to fight for their rights bravely and not to be afraid to be judged?
Hello. Um, well, I think, first of all, I'm very sorry that I would just like to say I'm very sorry that you have to go through this kind of thing. Like, I don't think it's right that anyone should be sexually harassed. And definitely you shouldn't feel like it's your fault. And I think that's part of the judgment, is just feeling like it's your own fault. I think what I would encourage is that there are a lot of women out here, unfortunately, who experience the same things. So one of the ways that the internet can be really empowering is by helping us to find people who have experienced the same things that we have, or who are like-minded to us. So I think first I would encourage you just to kind of seek online to see if you can find some type of community who've been through the same as you. And then as well, just to, be strong in your own personal life by sharing your stories with people when you feel comfortable to do so, to help kind of lowering the stigma of this kind of thing, and also standing up for others when you see this kind of thing happening, like sexual harassment online, is really important.
Thank you so much for that really insightful answer to our question, Miss Leslie. Now, our last question goes to Miss Nabila Shohini. The question is, what could be the biggest challenge when empowering women in rural areas? What is the best way to overcome it, and what can the youth do?
All right. Personally speaking, from my experience, is that the biggest challenge is always about the understanding the culture and their lifestyle. So everybody, based on the demography or the location that we're based at, we have different understanding towards a certain topic. So when we go in there and reach out to the women community and try to empower them, it's always, there's always like a difference in understanding. So how to overcome it is basically to listen to them. Don't just go in there and intrude their area and say, oh, we're here to help you to do this and that. Maybe that's not what they want. Maybe they want something else. We need to address their needs, not the needs that we feel that they need. It's their needs. So it's best to always listen to them first, understand, and speak the same language. For example, like myself, I come from a scientific background doing masters, so I have scientific terms. But when I talk to this woman about sustainability, empowerment, or anything, I use their language instead, use simpler words or any words that they could understand. Because the key point here is to have mutual understanding and common ground. So that's my take. And what youth can do, there's a lot of questions. Those are 3 questions actually. What youth can do is that be open-minded, because we know that young people are always full of passion and very high-spirited, that they tend to, or we, because this is also from my personal experience, we tend to just go in there and just want to help people. Our intentions are purely good, but we may have a different kind of approach that's not suitable for the communities in the rural area. So that's my take. Just go there and understand them.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shohimi, for answering our question. Now, unfortunately, we are not able to answer all of your questions, but please note that all of the good questions, we will compile it and then we will give a response to that, maybe through social media or through email. But yeah, we will keep you updated. And now, okay. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to everyone for engaging in our question and answer session. If you want to know more about Maybank Foundation's future projects, please visit their website at www.maybankfoundation.com. And for more youth opportunities, please visit ASEAN Foundation social media accounts, which is ASEAN Foundation on Facebook, then at ASEAN Foundation on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm now giving the floor back to my colleague, Soyun.
Once again to my co-intern for moderating the session. Next up, we are having a little evaluation, so please follow the link on the screen and on the chat box. Don't forget to complete the survey's questions so that you can get the e-certificate and presentation materials. While filling out the survey, please enjoy a wonderful performance from Chiki Fauzi. Stay tuned and see you soon.
Sorry. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Soyun and Julian. And Miss Leslie, Miss Nikki, Miss Nurul. All is very insightful. And please enjoy our next song. Actually, it's not from us. It's from the Beatles. If you guys know this song, please sing with us. It's called Here, There, Everywhere. To be in better life, I need my love to be here. Here, making each day of the year, changing my life with a wave of his hand. Nobody can deny that there's something there, running my hands through his hair. Both of us thinking how good it can be, watching his eyes and hoping I'm always there. I want him everywhere, and if he's beside me, I know I will never care. But to love him is to meet him everywhere, knowing that love is still shared. Each one believing that love never ends, watching his eyes and hoping I'm always there. Here, there, and everywhere. Here, there, and everywhere. I want him everywhere, and if he's beside me, I know I will never care. But to love him is to meet him everywhere, knowing that love is a share. Each one believing that love never dies, watching his eyes and hoping I'm always there. Here, there, and everywhere. Here, there, and everywhere. Ta-da-da, ta-da, ta-da-da, ta-da, ta-da-da, All right. The next song, it's my song. It's in Indonesia. It's called Belukar Dunia. So I made this song when I travel with my friend in volunteering. We travel with Across, and we travel to rural areas, and then we met a lot of kind people who live like a candle. You know, like a candle, they sacrifice themselves to give to spread the kindness, the goodness to their surroundings. And for me, it's very inspiring. So when I go back to Jakarta, I made this song. It's called Belukar Dunia. The song is about sometimes life can be very hard, can bring you go like a roller coaster, but the most important things is to to hold your heart to always be a good and kind person. So here it is. It's called Belukar Dunia. It's also in soundtrack a movie called Nanti Kita Cerita Tentang Hari Ini. So
Ms. Chike Fauzi, sorry, but we are running out of time, so we have to do closing first. Is that okay with you?
All right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your performance, Ms. Chike Fauzi. I'm so sorry.
It's 15 minutes.
And thank you to all the participants who have completed the survey. Before we continue, I'd like to once again remind the participants that it is mandatory to complete the survey in order to obtain the e-certificates and then get some presentation materials. So if you haven't finished yet, please follow the link on the chat box. And now we have reached the end of today's webinar. We would like to express our deepest appreciation to our partners for the enormous support. And also we would like to thank our attendees for your great engagement in this webinar. We hope that this webinar inspires everyone to consider gender equality. If you'd like to know more about this program or our upcoming webinars, please visit ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation's website and social media. Until our upcoming event next month, stay tuned and please stay safe and have a great day. Thank you. And Chiki Fauzi, would you please continue your performance if you're all right?
All right. Yay. We're back again. So it's the last song from us. It's my song. It's called Belukar Dunia. Come on. Temui angin yang menggetarkan sayapmu, terbangkanlah hingga waktunya mendarat di mimpimu. Walaupun langit membentang bisik nurani, dengarkanlah bisikan mimpi yang mengitari hati. Dengarkanlah kisah terbaik adalah kisah yang berliku-liku dan penuh warna. Hati yang baik dan sinar terang di antara
yang berliku-liku berwarna hati yang bersinar terang di antara belukar dunia malam hari semalam. Have a good day. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful performance.
Thank you so much.